Welcome everyone to the Real Education Podcast. This is Anthony, your host. We are now on part 2 of our 2-part series on building relationships in the digital age. And today we're going to jump right in to looking at our second half of our relation acronym, looking at timing, influence, organization, and networking. So this is going to give us a good game plan for, again, how to build relationships in a more of a corporate setting. So come along and join us as we look into these factors for building relationships in the digital age. All right, everyone. Now let's just kind of summarize what we did on the first part of this 2-part series. And we looked at the entire word relation, but specifically we looked at reality, empathy, lifelong learning, and action, and how those components we use on a day-to-day basis on how to build relationships. So we're going to focus on timing right now, and then later get to influence, organization, and finally networking. But if we look at timing, I really want to focus on what do we spend our time on? Because spending time on what really matters is important when building relationships. And there's 3 ways that we can do this. We can do this by knowing how you spend your time. We can set daily priorities, and finally avoiding the dreaded multitasking, which a lot of us do. I still do it as well. So let's look at knowing how you spend your time. Now, it's so interesting because when we build relationships, we've not connected with somebody in the past, and I don't have time for that. Maybe you are in a school setting and you say, you know what, I don't got time to dedicate to that kid or to that colleague. And if you really think about it, we do. It's interesting, even this morning when I was on my way going to an event, my reminder popped up of how much time I spent on my phone last week, and it was down for an average of 6 hours and some change in minutes. And think about that. I spent 6 hours basically a day on my phone. Now, if we say we don't have time to spend to get to know someone a little bit better, reconnect with them, that's kind of a false statement in and of it, because we do spend our time how we want. And one of the things I want you to look at here on the screen, if you're looking at YouTube, you'll see that this is an example of how I spend my time. And I literally do clock everything that I do while I'm at work, or even sometimes I'm trying to help that at home, so that I can see, look, I have a lot of time that I have plugged in to different events. But how about us actually plugging in some time, let's say during lunch or right after work, for that person that we're really trying to connect with and build a relationship with? Because you'll find that if you actually just plug it in, then we can make time for it. But keeping a time log is a helpful way to determine how you're using your time and how to be able to truly get in that extra time that we often feel like we don't have. Now, if I look at setting daily priorities, this is another thing that will really help us when we're looking at building relationships, but also, again, trying to find that time. So one thing is just to use your log, but another thing is to set daily priorities, because we often fail to really prioritize our to-do list, right? How many of us do that? How many of us have to-do lists, right? And sometimes they're long. And when we finally get done at the end of the day, we don't get done with all of our to-dos and we feel defeated. Well, part of the reason why we do that is because we're not prioritizing. So I want you to start to prioritizing your to-do list, and I want you to determine what is important versus what's urgent. Let me say that again. I want you to determine what's important versus what's urgent, because it's the things that are urgent that need to be on the top of your list. I wouldn't do your to-do list just in alphabetical order. I wouldn't do them just about when you just put them down as far as your thoughts on them. But you actually need to maybe put a scratch piece of paper down first and then prioritize them. Or maybe if you just have them in a scrolling list, but you prioritize them in a 1, 2, 3, 4 system. And the things that are number 1 should be urgent, and the things that are number 4 need to be less urgent. But it's important to know that most important tasks are usually not urgent. And so when we're going down our list, just going them in order, we lose sight of the things that are urgent, and then that's why we feel defeated. So we want you to prioritize your task by importance and urgency first. If you do that, then you'll be able to be more successful at accomplishing the most important things by the end of the day. Now, listen, again, this is the digital age that we're talking about, and some people do not use the paper and pencil anymore. So a couple of things that I found really helpful is Evernote. Evernote is a great app that you can use, and another one is just this Todoist. Right? So these are two great apps that you can use. Or if you just want to use the notes feature or the reminders feature on Apple, Google has another one as well. But in the day that we live in now, it's really great to be able to have these things that are connected to our phones. And so they give us reminders about, hey, make sure you do this at 8:30. Make sure you make this deadline. And these things really do go a long way to helping us prioritize our time, but also making sure that the important things get done first. And let's talk about our last kind of step here when spending time on what really matters. And that's really just avoiding multitasking. Now, look, we all have busy lives. And often we are, especially in the car. If you're again watching on YouTube, see this guy is eating his lunch. He's also trying to drink, taking an important phone call, and then looking at that figure for the meeting that he's about to drive to, right? But it's important that we have to start and complete a task before moving on to another one. Often we don't do this because we've been losing time switching from one task to another. Right? The productivity that we think we have when we're multitasking really is hurt, and we're not giving each task the due diligence that it actually needs. And so this is why a lot of things often get misconstrued, or they get miscommunicated, or some of the details in our task or projects don't get complete because we were on something and then somebody came in, or we got distracted and we went back to it and we kind of forgot where we were going or the detail in that particular section, and then something happens, right? Something goes wrong with it. But, routine multitasking can lead to difficulty in your concentration when you need to maintain your focus. So it's important, again, to start a particular task and not to move from it until you've completed it. It's really, I love this quote here by Yogi Berra. He says, you don't have to swing hard to hit a home run. If you got the timing, it'll go, right? So, some people are like, man, I need to buff up and I need to get some steroids and I need to really, if they were, playing baseball, it's not about how big you are. The timing is key, right? There's a sweet spot on that bat that if you swing just right, you're going to knock it home. You're going to have a home run, right? And that's why timing is important. And you have to have it in order to really see how you spend your time. Now, I want you to look, again, if you're not watching YouTube, that's fine. But this piece of research here that I found early when I started researching how to build relationships, especially with timing. But if you look, it's just something specific here, looking at the filming industry and how in a shot length, let's say these are called motion pictures, as we know. But, it used to be in let's say a 3-minute scene, you didn't have very many changes in the camera angles, right? Let's see Gone with the Wind. If two people were talking, Humphrey Bogart, I think the other lady, I forgot her name, but they talked, and you only may have seen maybe 2 or 3 camera changes in a 3-minute setting. Well, now come up to 2023, and we might have in a 30-second exchange with 2 people talking, you might have 45 different camera angle changes. And this is kind of altering our brain chemistry because we constantly have to move our eyes to see where the angle of the camera is moving, right? And so just look at this. The average shot length from the 1930s up until now, it was long. It was almost 10 seconds. Right? And the activity on the right side, if you look at it, the activity there was very short. So we had longer shot lengths and shorter activity within the actual shot, right? So only people were just talking. And over time, we had the shot length went down. Let's say from 10 seconds to little like 2 seconds. And then within those 2 seconds, there's so many activities going on. And it's caused us to even have to move our heads. Back and forth, right? Trying to figure out what in the world is going on here. And so we've naturally almost lost our concentration to just actually focus on one thing just based upon some of the movies and how that's done. So just a key factor there that I thought that was really interesting. So these just, again, in conclusion for this particular section here, spending time on what really matters helps us if we know how we spend our time, if we set those daily priorities and finally just avoid multitasking altogether. If we do that, then we're really going to be able to see how we spend our time and how we can add in time back to building relationships with those that we love and those that we're getting a little better. All right, now let's talk about influence, more specifically becoming a positive impression. Now, we can do this in 3 ways. The first step is to be authentic around everyone, to increase trust with those around us, and also to treat others as we want to be treated. So let's talk about first impressions. Often we think that it's what we say that comes out of our mouth that makes the most impact, but really it's our body language. Research shows that 55% of our first impression comes from our body language and 38% from our tone of voice, and then only 7% of what we say. So imagine if you're getting ready to talk to somebody that you heard is kind of a nuisance, very annoying, and their first impression of you is you put your arms up together and you act like you don't want to engage in any conversation with them. Or just anybody in general. Again, our body language is so important. So it's important to watch how you are. How people used to say, fix your face, because sometimes we have problems with when somebody's interacting with us and our body language shows, I don't want to be here. And I'm not saying to not do that, because sometimes, we are just in this tough situation. But the first impressions really do make a difference. And if you're really trying to be a positive impression, then our body language speaks louder than what we actually say. And so again, if you're watching YouTube, then you'll see that there's a image of a real chick, and then a fake one. And we have to be authentic around everyone, right? We can't allow certain aspects of our lives to be authentic and then other places not. Now, there's some people who say, well, when I'm at work or when I'm in another place, I can't be myself. And if that's the case, then you have to find a way to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that, if you're a hothead and you think that that's you being authentic, well, you can't be a hothead in all places, right? Try to go to the courtroom while the judge is talking and be a hothead there. It doesn't work, right? That's going to land you in jail because you're going to be in contempt. So we can't say that being authentic or being ourselves in all aspects of what we think is authenticity is going to benefit us. We have to know how to balance that out. So I'm just saying to be authentic around everyone. And that actually goes a long way to you feeling good about yourself, but then being able to build relationships with those that may not have that connection with you. So you have to think about, what influences people the most. And this is more of a rhetorical question, but there's 6 things that I've kind of realized are things that influence us the most. And one is social media. Another one is our culture, or where we come from, our upbringing, our religion, our faith, our friends, our family, and finally, money. There are a lot of different things that influence us, and we have to be cognizant, or we have to be aware of those things, right? So is money influencing us? And if it is, we may act a certain way around our family. Our families may influence us, and we may act a certain way around them or around others. But it's important to know what influences me. And if I know that, then I'm going to be able to be more authentic around those around me, and it's going to help me to become a positive impression. So what's the next thing that we need to focus on? The next thing is just increase with trust with those around us. And how do we do that? Well, it's really about having character and competence. Now, character, when we break that down, it's really a constant, and it's necessary for trust in any circumstance, right? Your character is so important, regardless of the situation, or regardless of the circumstance. We always have to have character. And we do that by utilizing 2 things: having integrity and knowing our intent. Our integrity is merely when we are basically ourselves, or we have good integrity when people are looking versus when they're not looking, right? I know we can break that down a little bit more, but just in a general sense. And then your intent, because sometimes our intent, we think we mean good, but if we don't examine our intent, on how we approach someone, how we talk to someone, then our intent may be perceived as one not having integrity or one that's trying to get over on somebody. So it's important as we're building trust and we're building those relationships with other people that we really look at our character and our integrity and our intent and make sure that it makes sense. And a really great book that kind of helps with this particular thing in building trust is The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. I do recommend it in order for you to be able to build your trust and take your trust to the next level. Now, the second thing is to have competence. Right now, this is situational, and it really depends on the circumstance in order for you to require the competence that you have. And that's really found in the capability and your results in what you have. Now, let's just take, for example, now I used to play basketball. I'm tall. But what if somebody came to me and said, hey, you know what, Anthony, I want you to put together a basketball team. And now, look, I have good character, right? I'm upstanding. I have good intent on trying to build the best team. But what if my competence on building a basketball team is not there? Do you think that those players that I get together, they're going to trust me? I doubt it, because guess what? My capability of playing may be there, but I don't know how to build a team. I don't know the ins and outs of how to practice. And so my results are probably going to be poor. So you have to think about when you're building trust with those around you. Sometimes, for example, if we're dealing with someone difficult and we're building a relationship with them, maybe I might have the best character ever, but I don't know how to reach that individual. Maybe there's some skills that I have that I need to develop. Let's say, for example, I get really angry if someone talks about a certain situation. And so you know that this child has difficulties or this person has difficulties with that particular topic that you have to talk about all the time. So you may need the skill of how to remain calm when you're talking to these persons or these people. So that's something that you need, right? So it's not in all situations. It's just I need to be able to build the skill of how to connect with this person and do it in a way that's they're going to see, that, you know what, I care for them and that I have the results of being able to do that on a consistent basis. And so, again, your competence is really important. It is key to being able to increase trust with those around you. Now, let's look at the last step, and that's really treating others as you want to be treated. Now, here's a great story about a police officer in Mount Healthy, Ohio, and how the police, in the past few years, several years, police and communities have been very tensive, right? Tension. There's a lot of tension there because of just the way certain things happen in different communities and police. Well, this is a story about a young police officer who was on the streets and had received a call about a particular vehicle that was on the roadway and blocking the road. And so he went in and he talked to, well, actually there was a barbershop. It was near a barbershop, And the barber owner came out, and the cop was like, hey, someone called in and said that there was a vehicle here blocking the road. And obviously there was no vehicle blocking the road. And he said, man, I'm sorry. The police officer said, I'm sorry. See, this stuff like this is what makes, things very tense when things happen. And so, man, it was a fluke. So the guy was like, well, I understand. And the barbershop owner was like, hey, well, come on in. We're doing some meetings, and we're really trying to do some community outreach here. And I want you to kind of come in and see what we got going on. And the police officer was like, nah, I can't, man. I don't want to intrude. And it just so happens that man, I lost the guy's name. This is bad. Jerome Bettis, that's what his name is, Jerome Bettis. Jerome Bettis was sitting in the actual barbershop because there was a Ford, which has some outreach up near Detroit or in that area, was there to try to increase some outreach in the community. And Jerome Bettis was there. And when the police officer saw Jerome Bettis, he almost died. Because he was like, oh my goodness, my dad was a major fan of yours when you were playing. And so right then and there was a connection. And let me tell you what the barber owner said about this particular situation. It was one of those moments that reminded me of our humaneness, our frailties, and our similarities. In that moment, we were all just men navigating the world without the mask we were taught and trained to wear. We can collectively choose to see beyond the uniforms we all wear. It's not easy and there is a lot of work to be done, but if we can at least start seeing each other, I believe things will get better. Y'all listen to that. That was a tense situation that could have easily turned into a very dire situation, given if anybody went overboard or went above what was happening right there. And I love that barbershop owner's viewpoint there. You all, we have to try and work out being able to build trust with one another. And again, it's so often in certain communities, the police, they're not trust. People in the community don't trust the police officers. And again, that situation could have turned to a drastic one. But because both of the men, kept level heads, then positive things came out of that. And I just think that was just a great story. So, in closing with that, I want you to, again, focus on this. Influence, becoming a positive impression. It's important. In order for us to be able to build relationships, we have to be able to do that. All right, so let's take a look at organization and looking at it from collaborating with others in order to build relationships. And we do that in 3 steps. The first is to form a community of like-minded individuals, being able to build unity within the group, and finally open and keeping communication flowing. So let's take a look at that forming community of like-minded individuals. It's so interesting in the internet age that we live in, or the digital age, how people are connected with each other that have never met. And we'll get to some of those statistics in just a minute. But think about that. For people that, for example, board teachers, there's a Facebook group called Board Teachers. And I think they have one just as a regular website. But there are teachers from all across the world and this nation that I've never met, but they have come together collectively just because they're a teacher. And so they talk about many topics of the ups and downs of being a teacher. And so many people connect and they feel like they have been lifelong friends just through this one connection of being like-minded. Even people that had, joined winter reading clubs. Or my favorite, I wish I was a part of the Mystery Shopping Providers Association. The folks that go in to the shopping grocery stores and are able to see how customer service is really being done. But all of these different type of organizations and groups are bound together by being like-minded. And that's important when we're building relationships and being able to collaborate with other people. That's true, right? So let's talk about that statistics, especially amongst the young people. In a recent YPulse survey, 48% of the ages 13 to 34 said that they have had a blind connection. That means they've met people online, but they've never actually met them, and they have this connection. Isn't that powerful? And again, just as we talked about it before, that if you have a like-minded cause or a topic, you're more than likely to build a relationship with these people that sometimes can last a lifetime, and you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home or your job or wherever you may be around the world. Just being like-minded is enough for somebody to have that connection. Now let's think about building unity within the group, right? Obviously, trust, respect, and value increase as a result of that common bond. Again, so you have people that have never met each other, but because they have that common bond of whatever topic, let's take being a teacher, trust and respect and value already increase just based upon that. And so that's how you build unity. But often there's people that have different views and different ways about themselves within that group. And so the direction, as you can see here on the video here, the people are all in different directions. But what's important about a group or people being like-minded is that everybody's got to be going in the same direction. Right? Because again, even though people have different personalities, they have different viewpoints, when they come in a group, everyone's going in the same direction, right? Everyone is feeding into the same energy. And so they're able to really increase the bond even more because they have that unity within the group. Very, very powerful. And the last one, I think it's the last step here, is to open and keep communication flowing. People say, and often in marriages, that communication is probably one of the number one things that often is cause for divorce. And it's a basic foundation that people don't communicate the way they're supposed to. And so because it's important to open and keep communication always flowing, right? In some parts, having these crucial conversations. When you have relationships and you're trying to build relationships, and let's say something happened to tear a relationship, you might have to have a crucial conversation. And part of that is keeping that communication open and flowing. But there's times that we don't want to do that, and it's because, man, they were hurt. But you have to realize everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to be valued, and everybody at the end of the day wants to be understood. Regardless of what walk of life they're in, we have to be able to have that. And so we have to remain capable and willing to listen, to open up our active listening skills, to be able to restate what is said. And so we can able to, again, to collaborate with those that we hear. Again, now that's how we collaborate with others and really be able to have organization on that level by forming a community of like-minded individuals, building unity within the group, and finally opening and keeping communication flowing. So let's talk about networking and how serving others is really important in building relationships. And we do this through sharing information and ideas with others, through focusing on the common vision, and finally giving often our time, energy, or money. Now, look, when we share our information and ideas with others, a great example of this is when a natural disaster happens. When a natural disaster occurs, there are different groups and organizations that share information with each other. For example, hospitals, FEMA, police, the Red Cross, schools, businesses, civic organizations. So when something happens, normally the Red Cross may call the schools and say, hey, we need some beds because people have got displaced. And so the schools share information with Red Cross. The police share information with the hospitals. The different businesses might even open up their doors and say, hey, maybe Home Depot, hey, what do you need? Do you need sand? Do you need wood? The grocery stores may say, hey, do you need water? All of these different organizations, these different groups come together and they share information and ideas with others. And through that, relationships are either created or either forged. And this is the power of being able to network with each other, because we take our influence and we expand it outside of our circle. But what happens also when something like a natural disaster happens, we all focus on the common vision, and that really comes to helping others. Again, that service. And so when we have different organizations and different groups come together, it's important that we all focus on that vision. And when we all do that, when we share that information and those ideas and focus on the common vision, that's how we're going to continue to grow relationships in even wider aspect than we have thought before. Now, how do we do that, though? Some people may say, well, I'm an individual. How do I make an impact through my networking? And this is why giving often of your time, your energy, or your money is important. Look, we all have 24 hours in a day, and you can give your time in order to make an impact and to create and build relationships. And let's say, you know what, you can also use your energy. So through volunteering, when a natural disaster happens, go and help move bags of sand when, trying to continue to make sure that the weather doesn't get into people's houses. You can go and feed people who have been displaced, or even help pass out water. Our energy is equally as important as time is. And if you have the ability to use money to help, use your finances to help be a blessing to someone else. Again, expand your influence and your relationships outside of your circle. It's important. Listen, we are all able to use our time, our energy, and our money, if we have it, to help others. But beyond that, it's all about support. Now listen, the most important part of a bridge are the support beams. And the support is literally to bear or to hold up a load, a mass, or a structure to serve as a foundation. And if nothing else, for us as individuals, we can support and serve as a foundation for people that need to build relationships. And so I want you to be impactful. I want you to believe that you can make a difference in someone's life. Whether that's a child, whether that's a colleague, whether that's a peer, whether that's a family member, you can be the foundation for somebody and be their support by being able to build relationships. Listen, relationship building is this way. And this is a great quote from the Dalai Lama. And it says this: our prime purpose in this life is to help others. And if you can't help them, at least don't hurt them. Wow. Look, if you can't help someone, at least don't hurt them. That's a powerful statement. So in closing, I want us to remember that in order to build relationships through networking, we share information and ideas with others, we focus on the common vision, and we give often our time, our energy, and our money. I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Real Education Podcast, looking at timing, influence, organization, and networking, and how we utilize those to build relationships. Listen, if you want more information on how to utilize these 8 strategies, and even utilizing it step by step as you've heard throughout these last 2 episodes, we should go to relationships.com. That's REL, the number 8, TIONSHIPS.com. That's relationships.com. And you'll be able to download the toolkit. It's free. And it even has everything that we talked about, again, in these last 2 episodes there as a free resource for you to be able to build relationships, again, in the digital age. This is Anthony signing out. See you later.